Welcome back to the show. Before we get to my next guest, I just want to remind everyone, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast and to my free newsletter, nataliebrunel.substack.com. That's where I publish a free weekly Bitcoin and economic news update that you can listen to or read in 10 minutes or less. I am also gearing up for the third annual Women of Bitcoin brunch in Nashville at Bitcoin 2024. I'm so excited. We will be giving away free tickets. And this year we're hosting a raffle at the brunch to raise money for women in distress. You can actually support the cause. Watching this show, you can donate via the QR codes on the screen. And if you use my favorite Lightning wallet, Speed, they will match funds up to $3,000. We're going to be giving away fun items like block clocks, cold storage wallets, little hodler dolls, and more. So I hope to see you all in Nashville. And now it's time for the show. Joining me this week, the man, the myth, the legend, entrepreneur, investor, author of one of my favorite books, Price of Tomorrow, Jeff Booth. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Natalie. Great to be here.
It's been so long. First, I just want to get an update. How are you? What have you been up to?
I'm great. Mostly the work in EgoDeath, funding companies that are kind of building the rails to where the future is going.
Well, I mean, it's been a good time to build, right? I feel like the attention on Bitcoin has been in a little bit of a lull, but so much is happening behind the scenes with founders and companies that are ready to go when Bitcoin hits the next real bull market. That I know we're in one, but it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, it's incredible what's happening behind the scenes. Being part of it, actually getting to shape what's happening. It's just I say it all the time. I just pinch myself that I'm fortunate enough to be in this seat to be able to work with these founders.
Well, we happen to be talking when Bitcoin takes another dip and returns to like the mid 50,000 range or so. Can you share your thoughts? Because I talked to some people who are super bullish. They feel like Bitcoin is a coiled spring, ready to go. Other people are feeling a little bit bearish, especially given the macro environment. And others, I feel like you're in this category. They don't watch the price in fiat at all, and they're just thinking about the network building. So what's your take?
Yeah, so anytime somebody says the price measured in fiat dollars, I almost cringe because it tells me they're reinforcing a world that is based on stealing money, based on essentially value not going to where it should go through the free market force, and that construct that they're living in is reinforcing and making their entire lives worse. So I see Bitcoin very different than most people do, and it attaches to virtually every kind of from there everything else. And from my book that you could simplify the entire book and essentially the natural state of the free market is deflation, and technology would make that deflation happen at a way faster rate, at an exponential rate. And that deflation shouldn't be feared, because what it actually is the productivity flowing to us so that we can live abundant lives and do what we want. So that's the natural state of the market. And that means anything that stops that, not from zero inflation, but from the implied rate of deflation, which would today be probably -5 or -6%, anything that stops that is not an economic system. It's not a political system. It's a control system that gains its strength from stealing from you. And so once you understand that that is true, and I haven't found one person to debate me on that, the natural state of a free market is deflation. So once that that is true, then as a derivative, everything else from the existing system is stealing from you. The political system, as we get locked into who's better at stealing from you, that's really what you're arguing. Who gets the benefits of this theft that comes from you in the end? And so Bitcoin stands as the only thing that I've found that I've been able to that can protect you from that. And it stands, and it's that because it's not a coin. It's a protocol bounded by energy. It's an open, decentralized, and secure protocol bounded by energy. And it doesn't care if you want to price it through currency or through pieces of paper that are being manipulated. It doesn't care. It just keeps on moving forward. So relative to Bitcoin, all prices are falling and will forever, because it's the only free market force that is in existence, and everything tethered to the other system is not. It's a control system.
Right. And we are witnessing this sort of repricing, as you talk about a lot. I was thinking about your book the other day and how it was written before the pandemic stimulus and the massive amount of money printing that was the result of the shutdown. And so it was very ahead of its time. You predicted a lot in the book, and you talked about how when we face sort of the end of this debt cycle and when inflation and deflation are coming to a point where, I mean, the two forces are incompatible, right? And the forces are coming together faster and faster. And populism is one of the results, because people feel so frustrated that there's such a growing wealth concentration. They turn to politics for solutions and for help. And I know you're in Canada, but I'm sure you're watching from afar what's happening with our US election. And I love your message, along with so many other Bitcoiners, that no political side will fix this. We have to address something deeper, which is the money. So do you have a message for those watching ahead of the election and the craziness right now happening in American politics?
We're captured by car crashes. We slow down at a car crash, right? And just everything you do with inside the system makes that system stronger. So obviously, if you're watching social media, or if you're on one side or the other, it's going to be really hard for me to say something that convinces you that both are equal. Because your belief reinforces, and you're listening to news specifically around your belief that this one's a better evil than the other one. And so like you said before, I've tuned it all out. I'm building a parallel path or for me, I'm living in a parallel path that is repricing that world, and I'm helping the entrepreneurs advance that repricing of that world. So it doesn't touch me. I empathize for people that are living there, and once I too was once there, I thought there was a fix from the system creating the problem. But after realizing that there is no fix from the system creating the problem, I had to put my time into something that's more valuable. And I think you're doing the same thing. And people that have moved their time into creating a parallel path that's more valuable for society are finding abundance, and they're finding connection, and they're finding something that's getting better and better and better all of the time. And they're immune from that kind of nonsense. The only reason I kind of almost was triggered when you said pricing Bitcoin from that system is it reinforces that system. Yeah. You're constantly right. Really what you're saying is, I'm going to trade this for pieces of paper that then I'm going to price the world in. And so you're reinforcing that notion of doing that is giving the system more strength, because you're thinking, that notion is you're still thinking in a fiat world when it's being repriced. Bitcoin doesn't care. Right? It doesn't care about the piece of paper. It doesn't care about Trump. It doesn't care about Biden. It doesn't care about any of that. It's repricing all of it.
Coin Stories is proudly brought to you by Bitdeer, a global leader in disruptive technology for Bitcoin mining and AI. As a publicly traded leader, Bitdeer boasts a massive 900 megawatts of operational data center capacity and an additional 1.1 gigawatts under development across 3 continents, positioning Bitdeer as one of the most diversified and power-dense computing companies in the world. Bitdeer's leadership laid the groundwork for the original advancements in Bitcoin mining ASICs. It's really the only company in the industry with the track record and clout to disrupt the market again, with groundbreaking new designs for the next generation of mining ASICs. Now, Bitdeer is leveraging years of expertise in data center and cloud management into high-performance computing through a recently announced partnership with NVIDIA. Join Bitdeer in reshaping the world of Bitcoin mining. Learn more at bitdeer.com and explore how they are pioneering the future today. Yeah, Jeff, I know you really are living in the future. I still do think of things in terms of fiat. And last week I did a show about real estate and Bitcoin, because we've monetized real estate, right? It's everyone's savings account, and houses have gotten to a point where very few people, especially young people, can afford them. And one of the things I've heard you talk about is how homes will fall to the price of utility. And it's so hard for me to wrap my head around that, because as we print more money, one thing's guaranteed, right? They're going to debase the currency, which is one of the reasons why we need Bitcoin. I just can't imagine a world where home prices are falling. People don't want the home values that they've invested in to fall, right? They want their home to be worth more and more, even though they're going to sell it only to buy something super old that's completely overpriced. But can you talk a little bit about that, especially for people who are like, no way, all of these assets are going to continue to inflate in value, including real estate and equities, and Bitcoin will be along for the ride?
Yeah, so they will versus the existing system of debasement. In fact, the home itself is a part of that, because you can't store your money in the bank because it loses value, because the real rate of return is less than the inflation rate. So it's a part of the construct that other things have to create value. So now you take now you take bigger leverage against a home and that pushes up house prices, because you're trying to store your wealth in a home, and that removes a home from a utility, which it was 100 years ago when families lived in their homes, neighborhoods were close, and it moves it away from that, and it's a store of value against and as that breaks, and the same thing that breaks it was a government intervention to actually create that problem in the first place, because of manipulated money, and more people see the assets as a store of value, then big money gets involved as well to be able to store their wealth in those assets, and it doesn't become a home anymore. It becomes a store of value. And so the very thing that is that financialization of things, to be able to find other things to store your value in, is a result of money losing value. And we've lived in, so if you're measuring Bitcoin from a system that has gained all of its wealth, and actually I would even say gained its wealth, protected its wealth from financialization of assets, including stock market, and if you're on top of that and you've seen financialization and you think financialization is the free market, then you're likely to see Bitcoin and see, how do I financialize more things and prices that keep going up? And most of our economy, or a lot of the majority, is now financialization. And so, but all of those things, and I can just do a simple equation, and in Bitcoin, in my house was $1.4 million 4 years ago. It's now $2.1 million in fiat pieces of paper. But relative to Bitcoin, it was 300 Bitcoin 4 years ago, and now it's 20. Today's price 26 Bitcoin. And so, in 4 years, my house will be worth 2 Bitcoin. And so, if you want to take your Bitcoin to buy a house because you want the house now, that makes sense. But realize you're overpaying because of the financialization for the house, because the house relative to Bitcoin is falling to its utility value, like all things will in the free market.
It is crazy to see those charts of how homes are getting cheaper when priced in Bitcoin, which gives a lot of hope to those of us who want to someday have a home. I was thinking about our Pacific Bitcoin talk, where you really honed in on the notion that inflation is wage deflation. And you talked about what you were making as a lifeguard, a couple decades ago versus your kids. And it's basically, it was the same, right? Even though the purchasing power has decreased so much with the currency. Can we really break that down for people who hear that, but they don't understand what it means and why that's happening? Why is inflation wage deflation, and why are workers not keeping up with the pace of everything getting more expensive?
Yeah, so in a free market, prices fall to the marginal cost of production, and that means, so the output. Think through everything you do, and everything, no matter if you work for somebody or if you're working for an entrepreneur, or if you're the entrepreneur. So the only way you can survive as a business is to create greater value than what was there before, right? Because buyers choose your product or service based on what was there before. And if you're creating more value, and if it's less value, buyers won't choose it. And I put a caveat: unless you create regulation to protect a monopoly. Okay. Unless it's government protected to protect the monopoly, the free market constantly has to produce more value because there's two sides of it. One, the person creating the value, and one, you as the purchaser. And you as the purchaser is a huge part of creating this value. So the output of those two things has to be prices fall. And if you add technology with it, is just really just an invention by us, right? A name, right? If you add all the things that we create with technology, then it has to be faster value creation. And so when I say prices fall to the marginal cost of production in that world, what I mean is, like, the calculator app on your phone is a line of code. So a line of code is free. So the calculator app becomes free. The first entrepreneurs go and create a calculator. It costs money. And then the next ones come in and attack the price lower and lower and lower until it's free. And the entrepreneurs go and create something else of value. So if that's true, which it is, then what is the line of code created by other lines of code cost, right? And when we talk about AI and where that goes, it's also free. And that's why if you download GPT-4 all number 4 all onto your computer, you can have all the open source models for free, and you don't need the internet anymore to use AI. And those are getting better and better at an exponential rate, which they will because of the free market creating this. So where is the value in AI? And I'm going to get to your long roundabout way to get to your question, but where's the value in AI? Where can you protect the kind of the amount of money that's going into AI when the output is free? You can only scare people and create regulation to lock them in, that the monopolies have to protect the people from the AI. And so what you see today on the other side of this monopoly game is a whole bunch of fear around AI, when the truth is AI should allow all of the prices to fall faster, so you don't have to work at all. And so compounding that system is, the faster that moves, the faster that productivity is supposed to reach you, the implied productivity rate. Our financial system that we live in, based on an economic structure that has to grow forever by manipulating money, because otherwise if you allowed the deflation to take hold, the debt would collapse. But the debt is our system. So what's actually happening is as this is happening faster on one side of the ledger, the debt has to increase exponentially on the other side of the ledger, and that, when you talked about deflation, kind of wage deflation, or what's happening is that debt is stealing your wages, or that system is stealing your wages at such a crazy rate. Remember, not from zero, from the implied deflation rate.
Yeah.
So the amount of theft of money is so staggering, and then people are looking for, where can I put my money to be safe in that system? And they don't realize that they're all playing a prisoner's dilemma game. Well, they're trying to make money to save their family inside that system, and they're making it worse for every other human being on the planet by making that system stronger. And virtually most of the world is caught in that prisoner's dilemma. And it doesn't matter how high or low you are in that system. The lower you are in that system, the more you feel it. But the higher you are in that system, there is no place to hide. When revolution comes and wars come, what are you trying to protect yourself from when you're creating instability in the world from your very actions, by trying to get more of a piece of something that is based on theft? So that's largely why I've tuned this out. If you talk to like, when I see Whitney Webb stuff, like, and people think these are detached, they're the same system. Like, where would the deep state get its funding from if you had to disclose what was being funded? Like, all of this stuff is exactly the same system that has to steal more, and it has to hide more, and it has to gain more control over you to be able to work against the free market.
It's so interesting because I feel like we are in a place where there's more of an environment of get mine and get out, a lot more grifting, speculation. People are trying to take advantage of this highly manipulated system. And even if you do profit from the world of fiat and you're doing really well, no one does well when the whole system is unstable and on the brink of collapse, right? It's gotten to that point of just such fragility that even if you are at the tippy top, you're going to experience pain. And why would you want to exist in a world where so many people are feeling frustrated and left behind and resorting to, more violence? And it's not a world of cooperation and prosperity that we could have, and the abundance that you talked about. I'm glad you brought up AI because I want to dig into that a little bit, because on the one end you do have this you have the inflationary forces and ever expanding credit. You need more and more credit to produce less and less real growth. But then on the other side you have this deflationary force accelerating through artificial intelligence. And so I'm curious, where does Bitcoin fit in, and how does Bitcoin and the world of AI converge?
So this is actually why they're the same thing. So just take AI as an invention by us, created to serve us. It's a tool. And it's a free market tool that gets better and better over time. And relative to Bitcoin, it means all prices are falling faster to the marginal cost of production. Relative to the other system, you're going to see prices, they have to climb, and they have to, and as they climb, there is no free market when money is manipulated at this rate. So because the money is so that means, and I'm going to back up because this is so important. Just keep saying, like, over and over and over again, the natural state of the free market is deflation. And once you understand that, then you understand everything else is stopping it. And if you think your prices are going up, and if you think this politician and this is going to be growth, like, listen to politicians talk about growth today. They're talking about their productivity growth is faster deflation. So what they're actually talking about is, we're going to manipulate money faster to steal more money from you.
Mm-hmm.
They're not talking about growth at all. So just keep going. The natural state of the free market is deflation. Then everything that stops it is not a political system. It's not an economic system. It's a control system. And it's so critical. Now, why that's important in AI is, as AI moves faster and faster, which it inevitably will, exponentially, and it merges with robots that can do anything that you can do way better, faster. The business that hires that brings in robots that you say you won't use because they're removing labor, you will use because it's cheaper for you. You will use it. And if a business doesn't use that, they will go broke because you will choose differently. So if your choices are driving this to lower and lower prices, shouldn't you benefit in an economic system that is repricing that and sharing that abundance with all people on earth? That's what Bitcoin is doing. So Bitcoin is, and if you just took kind of $900 trillion balance sheet, which is the world's balance sheet today, and there's 21 million Bitcoin, then the implied value, as long as it stays decentralized and secure, of Bitcoin is about $43 million per Bitcoin today. But that $900 trillion, because you just 900 trillion divided by 21 million, all it has to do is stay decentralized and secure for in time that to be true. It's repricing the other system. But $900 trillion balance sheet today has $400 trillion of debt against it. And that debt is already insolvent. And if it was actually marked to market, the balance sheet of the world wouldn't be 900 trillion. You'd have a cascading collapse. All real estate prices, banks would fail, everything would collapse. Mm-hmm. So the only reason it's 900 trillion, essentially what you're measuring the world through, and you're part of that ledger, the only reason it's 900 trillion is because you think the debt is solvent, and you will vote for somebody who manipulates money instead of allowing a collapse. What does that mean? That means probably 4 or 5 years from now, the $900 trillion balance sheet won't be 900 trillion. It would be 2 quadrillion. And then if Bitcoin versus that balance sheet and the cost of living from there was 90 million terminal value of Bitcoin, it would be the same purchasing power, right? But the more important part is what I'll say here. Prices fall forever. So relative to Bitcoin, your $43 million purchasing power and terminal value today buys more and more forever, because prices will fall relative to it forever. So as a general case, if you just say, how much do I own of the ledger, the 900 trillion today, and make sure you own at least that in Bitcoin. And then and as you start to understand this more, you start to understand what's happening, start to move some of your time from the system that's co-opting your attention to the system that's uniting people and building to truth, hope, and abundance. And you'll find yourself more happier as you do that, because it's consistent where we are going as a society.
Well, I love all of that. And I love the world that you see and that you're funneling your energy into building. But when that world is one where AI is really ubiquitous in everything, will Bitcoin be used by the computers as currency? And also kind of zooming out, I mean, you're on the board of Core Scientific, right? I've heard that there's a lot of competition between Bitcoin and AI for energy and data centers. And so how is this, how do you see the evolution in these two worlds?
Yeah, and this is real. So think about Bitcoin as from energy perspective like this. So I know that Bitcoin's bounded by energy. And it creates more abundant energy by being there. And why? Because it provides a free market source for energy. So use this example. You run a bakery. Every day you throw out the extra bread at the end of the day. I come in at the end of the day and one day and I say, I'm going to buy everything you can produce, but I want a discount. The very next day you produce double as much and you hope I show up. Then I show up and I buy it all. The next day you buy 10 times, you create 10 times more bread. I buy it all. Next day, 100 times more bread. I buy it all. And so as a buyer of a last buyer of economic sort, then I've put a floor price on your bread, right? And I will always buy more. So it allows you to expand capability to be able to create abundant bread. That is what Bitcoin is doing in energy. So it's creating abundant energy. And what's happening is this abundant energy that always has to be cheaper, more and lower cost, because the free market wants better and better, lower and lower cost for their economic gain. It decentralizes energy all over the world because it instead of a capital cost that doesn't have a base buyer, right? If you're building an energy plant, you now have somebody that will always buy anything extra in production. So you would, of course, integrate Bitcoin into energy production, and that's now distributing energy all over the world and creating abundant energy. And on the other side, as the world is crazy short energy. So, but there's abundant energy on this planet. It's just an economic way to gain energy. And so now we have an economic model to gain energy that also that creates this rail to Bitcoin that is essentially bounded by energy, decentralizes it all over the world. And then you have AI, which is a high resource, high intensity energy usage that comes in and follows it on behind. Now you go in the geopolitical angle about energy, right? Or sorry, energy and AI is every country is going to want their AI models in their country. You're not going to want China or China's citizens aren't going to want theirs in databases in the US and vice versa. And this is so as Bitcoin decentralizes energy all over the world, in behind that, you're going to decentralize AI.
Wow.
So this is what in Core Scientific, this is essentially the strategy that that we laid out, and the team is incredible in creating this in this strategy. And if you've seen the stock performance of it, it's just as a simple part of this strategy. They own their energy infrastructure because they understand, and they always have understood, how Bitcoin mining is synonymous with energy, and they're rolling out this plan.
It's time for a quick break to hear these messages from my partners who make this podcast possible. Next up, Bitcoin 2024, the world's largest Bitcoin conference, is coming to Nashville this month. Join us for 3 amazing days of keynotes, panels, networking events, and my Women of Bitcoin brunch. The Bitcoin conference is where I launched my podcast 3 years ago, so you never know what can happen or who you can meet here. Head to b.tc/conference and use code HODL, HODL, for 10% off. Next up, Speed Bitcoin Lightning Wallet, one of the fastest growing wallets out there. Speed is a secure, low-cost way to send or receive Bitcoin instantly. It's super simple and scores high user ratings. You can even use it to shop gift cards of your favorite brands and earn rewards. Download Speed using the QR code on the screen or the link in my show notes and use promo code COINSTORIES10 to get 5,000 free sats. Next up, Coinkite. Coinkite makes everything you need to safely self-custody your Bitcoin, including the Coldcard wallet. That's the cold storage device I use for safekeeping my Bitcoin. You can verify the source code, it's ultra secure, and it's easy to use even if you're a beginner. Head to their site in my show notes and get a 5% discount with promo code COINSTORIES. And finally, the why of Bitcoin is easy to grasp, but the how can be so confusing. The Bitcoin Way is a professional Bitcoin IT and security team offering personalized one-on-one support that guides you through cold storage, setting up nodes, inheritance planning, privacy best practices, and more. Don't take my word for it. Take 82-year-old customer Bill's.
Give the Bitcoin Way a try. You will be well on your way to owning and protecting the greatest money ever discovered.
Set up your 30-minute free consultation today. All right, back to the show. So I see the technologies as being symbiotic and working together, but as far as the companies built in Bitcoin versus AI, are they competing in a sense? Because one thing that I've noticed is there's been so much attention placed on AI and people wanting to be in those stocks and following things like NVIDIA and wanting to bet on the next fastest horse. But again, they're sort of competing for energy with Bitcoin, right? And it's so funny, Jeff, I can't tell you how many former crypto influencers that were peddling all these alt tokens are now suddenly AI experts and they're wanting you to invest in their new AI venture. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like what is happening? AI is like the new crypto.
It's so bad. But again, start with first principles. Natural state of the free market is deflation. Where so where are the moats to AI, and where is the value in something that's going to free, creating all of this, the payback for the capital that's going into it, and what you find out in some of this AI, especially when the models they get trained in these. And then they move to, they get compressed, and then they can move under your computer, right? So the rate of progress here, where do you find the economic moat to be able to make tons of money in AI to pay back these investments? What you can see is this is going to end really poorly for a whole bunch of people that are spending outrageous amounts of money in AI, unless you've created a paradigm, a government regulation paradigm, which protects their moat by extracting that value from you. And then what ends up happening is essentially you consolidate that AI power in central control, which tells you what to do and how do you live your life and everything. So if you're kind of driving to regulate AI, you're playing inside the system of a system that's trying to take more of your power. But that is what has to happen from the economic system that you live in. And there are very few politicians, there's very few anyone within that system that even know what's happening. Mm-hmm. But that's why you just have to keep going. The free market, the natural state of the free market is deflation. That's the world you should live in a free market then. Because what do we do all over the world? We trade with each other. We create more value than what was there before, our ideas, and then we trade with each other to create more value. And so it has to be faster deflation. And the only thing measuring that is Bitcoin.
I love that. One thing that I really admire is how you view things in such a positive way. So my last question about AI is really, you see it as this tool, and you and Preston both, I mean, I feel like you're always light years ahead of what ChatGPT can do and where this is all going. And again, in a very positive way. But some people are very concerned about AI and governments or central authorities using it in a way that is potentially dangerous for our freedoms. What do you say to that for the people that are really concerned that AI will be used against us?
They should be. And all of their time being scared of it is actually making it happen. Because there is nothing they can do from that system. Complain to regulators, remember, we have regulation today to protect your money from a system designed to steal it. And government is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Because it has to out of that system. And by the way, on a global basis, you're not going to fight. U.S. isn't going to win the war on against China. Say a controlled structure that is largely just a massive liquidity amount and debt bubble that centralizes, that creates a centralized authority by being more centralized. The free market has always been more productive because the free market, it's all of these ideas competing against each other that give rise to everything we take for granted. And so what created US as a superpower in the first place was the free market and everybody moving to the free market to create more value. And all the value moved to the US as a result of out of that free market. And it's being co-opted by centralized markets. Now, Bitcoin is the opposite side of that. And as things get more and more controlled and co-opted, all people have to do is move their time to Bitcoin, and they're part of the new system, and they're part of that. But from the system, they should be very scared, right? From the system and how fast this will consolidate control. Imagine not. So the first wave here is and fear is a paralyzer, and that's why it's important to kind of recognize both things are true. One system is trying to free you, one system is trying to control you, and it's just the incentives within it. So from the system that has to control you because it's not based on the free market, it has to centralize further and further. Now, from that system, what will happen first? It's not it's not your job's going to be taken from a computer. It's from an AI. It's your job's going to be taken from somebody who knows how to use it better, right? So you need to know how to use it. You need to understand how to, and it's moving at a crazy rate. So that's the first thing. Now, and that's in every single industry. You need to know how fast this is moving. Now, at the next level, then those jobs will be taken by the AI. And so you're going to, by doing that, you're going to consolidate more and more power into it. And then what would it look like at the top? What would it look at who controls the AI? What would it look like to your daily life if prices have to keep going higher and higher? So what it would look like is that AI would convince you, just like most people are convinced that inflation is needed to run a productive society, that AI would convince you, or the people that were kind of controlling the strings at the very number would, here's your place in life as a pawn in the system to keep it going. And it would keep going. And then it would have to force you to kind of go to war with other people to create the same thing. That's what it would look like. And most people would believe it the entire way, because they don't know how much their thoughts are influenced by this already. And their media they're watching would be influenced. And for the people that weren't influenced, it would find people, the AI would find people in their network to be able to influence them differently, to be able to that's what it would look like if you had a control system managing all operation. Or all of that allows prices to fall and frees your time. That's what we're fighting for. That's what people they don't realize that's what's happening. And from the control system, it would look totally obvious to people driving that is we should tax the robots, right? And so why don't and that would be like saying we should tax the air you're breathing.
Mm-hmm.
right? Just to create more manipulation of a system that we can control instead of let prices fall like they should in a free market.
Well, in this system, people are always looking where they can extract more.
Totally.
It's a system that siphons away wealth from the productive side to really the not so productive side. I'm trying to be very hopeful and positive about AI, but I really miss the 90s when we had just enough technology to make life easier, but not so much that it overtook everything and everyone was just sitting on their phones all day. It makes me sad when I go to restaurants and couples, young and old, it's just like no interaction. Okay.
So here, if you want to be hopeful, this is my talk in Madeira, right? We're the supercomputer.
Yeah.
We are the supercomputer. Not the AI is just a tool, and it's all of our ideas that inform that. So in a world where the output of a free market system is prices fall, we unite and we become the supercomputer, all 8 billion of us, to give us more value. It's incredibly hopeful. It's the only reason that it's not hopeful is you're measuring it from a system that's trying to control it.
I want to ask you, Jeff, how can you describe your ideal form of government?
No, because we have never had a system of governance. So if and I'll walk through this in kind of a logical pattern. So if we've never had something decentralized and secure until Bitcoin, then we always had to trust in organizations or say the Magna Carta or the Constitution to protect us from the state becoming too big. And those pieces of paper delivered to thriving societies because they enshrined individual rights and freedoms the way the world should work. And where people were free and able to contribute, they had better ideas. They weren't stuck in systems. They had better ideas to give more value, which was the free market. And that was, and we live on top of a lot of those ideas that we don't even think about today. But what ends up happening is money is superordinate to law. So money is at a higher abstraction rate, right, to law. It's higher in level. And what you can see is those laws get changed over time to protect the money, right? The abusers of money. And by the way, you could just do the counterfactual on it, and you could say where money is most broken, what do the laws look like to protect people? And you can see what ends up happening. So you can see today in the U.S. the Constitution and rights and freedoms that were protected are being slowly whittled away with new laws to protect them and spying on citizens, and all of these things are becoming okay. And they're and it's a gradual creep of this control system because money is superordinate to law, because no one would, if they knew how important money was, right, into their laws, they wouldn't be focused on the laws, they would be focused on the money. Now, what ends up happening throughout time is over time, this keeps on, it breaks down, it gets worse and worse and worse. And the only way to get elected within that society is to divide the society against each other. So it has to, this group of people is bad, this group of people is good. You don't hear hope, and you hear it's a better choice than the really bad people. And then once you consolidate that control and you remove more individual rights and freedoms, no matter which party you do it from, then you have to create a greater enemy outside your borders to be able to go to war, to be able to reset the system. And kind of winner of war resets system on new monetary standard and resets the debt either through high inflation or through a new monetary standard, and says, we promise we won't do it again. And then it slowly starts again. And why does it slowly start again? Because the free market has always been deflationary. Right. And so anything that stops that has to be the system. And then, so now what does that mean? That means every history book we've ever written, every economic system that we were ever talking about before Bitcoin, all have this error code within them.
Wow.
and the winners write the history books, right? And so that error code is throughout history. So we don't actually have. So when somebody says libertarian or conservative or capitalism or socialism, they have a paradigm of what they think and their friends think that means that doesn't have anything to do with reason. We don't actually have what it would look like on this new system. What we'll do in society is invent what it looks like on this side in this new system is in service to people, and that's what's going to happen.
That is so thought-provoking, Jeff. It's so interesting, this idea that money is superordinate to laws. It made me think of, I'm reading a book called Lords of Finance. I don't know if you've read it.
Yeah, I've read it.
But there was a quote in it from the man who started the Rothschild banking dynasty. And it was, "Give me control of a nation's money supply and I care not who makes its laws."
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, I highlighted that. I'm like, wow, it's so true.
Yeah. And throughout and so we all become pawns in a system.
Yeah.
Thinking that we're protected by the law that is getting worse and worse. And again, that's why I keep saying, just imagine we have laws to protect you from your money being stolen by the same institutions designed to steal your money.
Yeah.
So what would it look like? Of course it would look like like that. And you'd have, in that world, if you had enough money, you would rise above the law.
Mm-hmm. And so many people have. And you're right. It's kind of, it's this idea of that paradigm shift where people in this system can't envision something outside in the same way that when they thought the world was flat, or that the, earth revolves, everything revolved around the earth, like we were the center of the universe. You can't make proper calculations when at the core, you have the math and the science essentially wrong. So fascinating. Okay, well, as we start to wrap up, I want to ask you another thought-provoking question. Is Bitcoin a store of value or a currency or a network?
Yeah, so it's all about it's a protocol bounded by, for layer one is a protocol bounded by energy, and that's what you're calling the store of value. Layer 2 and layer 3 in Lightning and Fediment and are turning into a currency and a payment mechanism. And again, I'm gonna say something here that's really that's important that I wasn't going to say on here because he's a friend, and I know he's a friend of yours too. But I think Michael Saylor is wrong here on it just being a store of value. And if he's right on it just being a store of value, then what it means is then it will move. All that happened is U.S. went from gold to an oil-backed currency, the petrodollar system, to Bitcoin. And if that's all it looks like, and it doesn't become a medium of exchange, then it will be manipulated. And it be suppressed so that the theft can go on.
Can you describe more? I mean, because I see a world where, especially at the beginning, fiat and Bitcoin coexist, and fiat can actually help Bitcoin in many ways. And as those rails collide, maybe we do eventually move to a Bitcoin standard, but I don't think that can happen very quickly. And I think people will want to spend their depreciating fiat, and it's almost more convenient. And, different countries will want to issue that and collect taxes in fiat. But the store of value being maybe the more important property of Bitcoin.
So I'm going to go from a different way into this then. If you knew that the entire history of the world had to control money and extract, and that base of money was extractive to 8 billion people, right? That's the world we've always lived in to get to this point. And what that would say is really simply, if I could steal a little bit of money from people over time and they didn't notice, then I could create an empire in doing so. So we know the entire state of the world for all time has always looked like that. And then Bitcoin came in on layer 1 and removed the ability to do that. And all of the attacks on Bitcoin over the last 15 years have all been trying to stop it, and it only gets stronger and stronger and more decentralized and more secure over time. So if you knew that, then and from that then you couldn't stop layer 1, then you would have to stop layer 2. You'd have to. And what that would look like is stable coins. That would look like is we're going to make US dollar transact on top of this stable coins, and we would move essentially from the petrodollar, gold backed, petrodollar to Bitcoin backed. But then we could suppress its price because people were using a different medium of exchange on top of it, and we could run derivatives and constantly hold its price down like we did to gold. Right. And what would that look like from it? What would not might happen? What would have to happen to essentially, because to essentially say that, because if it moved out as a unit, as a currency, as more and more people used it, then it would remove the ability to steal. Right, it would. We know the U.S. And when I say theft, I want to be careful. It's not that there's a whole bunch of people manipulating the theft to say and everybody involved in it. But we know that natural state of the free market is deflation, and we also must concur that anything else is trying to stop that deflation. And so if you now created a stable coin or a use of US dollar because more people see value in the dollar, I'm not saying people wouldn't be tricked by it. I'm saying they would be tricked by it. They would use a US dollar all over the world because they see it more valuable than their own currency. But it would also be, because all a stable coin is something that is guaranteed to lose money at the same rate as the US dollar, right? Against Bitcoin. So these systems are incompatible. One is the free market, prices fall. One is stealing more of your time and money. And so now through that lens, if you were trying to stop Bitcoin at layer 2, what would you do? Right? I know what I would do. I would make stable coins legal. I would try to slow down self-custodial. I would create ETFs so people didn't hold in on their own wallet, and I would try to slow down the building in Lightning and Fediment and everything else that were native to Bitcoin. I would promote a whole bunch of other altcoins or bridges to be able to create confusion in what's happening. So through that lens, you could see this coming a mile away.
Well, if these two systems are incompatible, don't you think that it's almost beneficial for Bitcoiners to Trojan horse Bitcoin into the system in a sly, roundabout way until it can't be stopped? Because ultimately, otherwise, we will be at risk of Bitcoin being co-opted or just lose the ability to gain mass adoption because people will be bifurcated in these different directions or maybe turn against something like Bitcoin or Bitcoiners because of how much wealth they've generated. I mean, can't it be sort of both as fiat currencies, there are 160 around the world, right? Slowly start to collapse maybe into stronger currencies, which eventually collapses into Bitcoin. But by that point, it won't feel like a collapse. It'll be more of a peaceful transition and the type of kind of parallel system that we peacefully opt into that you talk about?
I guess what I'm getting at is there is no way to stop Lightning, Fediment, everything that's happening. It's happening anyways. The free market is driving it, and it's going to be, and so it's going to be used as a currency. It is used as a currency. Where would it be used as a currency first? In nations that are furthest away from the money monopoly. Right. And people that are debanked. And so these things are a bottom-up disruption to the existing monopoly of money, and it's happening anyways. So I just don't believe it's not just a store. If it's only a store of value, then nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And so it will move into, because the store of value component relies on not the free market. The free market is deflationary. So it has to move into a medium of exchange, and it has to be ubiquitous that we're using this around the world to be able to, and I'm sure that that's going to happen, because I'm also investing in that space, and I can see what the entrepreneurs are building on layer 2 and 3,
Right.
that are driving that, and it's unstoppable in that place too. But there's a ton of confusion on what that looks like today. In fact, the amount of L2s, the VC funding in L2s that are projects that might not even be delivered for 2 or 3 years, that are crazy valuations, tiny with tokens, to try to move this to kind of a different L2. When Lightning is scaling so rapidly right now, I'm confused by how much money is going into this space. And then a lot of Bitcoiners are talking about this kind of, oh, let's do this project, and mostly it's through the lens of, we're going to financialize more. I'm going to get richer still in the US dollar fiat from the system. Well, the world is, in my opinion, the world is building very differently and it's going to be native on Bitcoin.
Well, you're giving us a lot of food for thought. I think this will spark some really interesting conversations. I do hope for a world where it's both, although candidly, I, in my life, see Bitcoin more importantly now as the store of value to help me kind of catch up where I felt like I was left behind in my 20s and early 30s. And so while I spend a little bit to, say, support local businesses, or when I travel and there's some convenience, I'm trying to save as much as possible, because that store of value is right now what I feel like will accelerate my ability to take care of the people around me and do more meaningful things with my career and my life. So it's really, really interesting. All right. Well, as we start to wrap up, any final thoughts, anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to maybe explore a little bit more?
No, just I would, if anything, just the nuance on these discussions. It creates almost fights in this when it's nuance of the world in transition. It's going to be chaotic, and these are nuanced conversations because we've never seen something like Bitcoin and what that could mean to the future, and it's extraordinarily powerful where we're going. But through that, you can understand different arguments and different viewpoints on where we're going.
Well, I love talking to you because I always feel more hopeful and inspired. So thank you so much, Jeff. Where can people find you? What are you working on that you might want to share?
I'm spending majority of my time on Nostr these days, but they can find me at Jeff at Ego Death Capital. That's primary, or jeffbooth.ca is my website. The only reason I call out my website is if there's a social media channel that you find that I'm on that isn't on my website, it's not me. I will never ask for money. So there's just too many imposters, scammers. You know this well.
Oh, yes, I do. I hope something's done, because it's getting to a point where a lot of people are getting scammed. Jeff, thank you so much. Everyone, check out his book if you haven't read it yet. Price of Tomorrow is absolutely incredible. It's not really a Bitcoin book. It's more of a technology book, but it helps you really understand why Bitcoin is so valuable and important. Make sure you're subscribed to the show and to my newsletter, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Coin Stories. If you're listening on the Fountain app, you can show your support and share your thoughts by sending a boost. Last month's top episode was a Bitcoin and macro hangout featuring Preston Pish, James Lavish, Susie Riley, and special guest Luke Groman. At Ryan Reynolds boosted 500 sats and said, "These hangouts are awesome. Please keep them going." I love reading and replying to your boosts, so download Fountain on iOS or Android today and make sure you subscribe to Coin Stories. This show is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Nothing should constitute as official investment advice, and you should always do your own research. My inbox is open if you want to share feedback or guest suggestions. Just reach out at natalie@talkingbitcoin.com. Make sure you're subscribed to the show and check out my free newsletter, nataliebrunel.substack.com. I'll see you next time.